Hello, everybody. We are here on avoiceformen.com, and we're going to take a look at an article called 11 More Reasons for a Straight Man to Avoid Marriage, or 11 More Reasons Not to Marry. Either one. The URL says one thing and the article says another. I'm here with my Scratchcast co-host, Makiten, also known from his new series, Scratching the Mic, so be sure to check that out if you haven't yet.
Every weekday on FX or something like that.
All right, we're going to get right into it. So the preface here is not really important. Obviously, the article will be linked below if you really want to read it, but there is one part of it that I am going to read before getting to the list. And basically, he just says, I've compiled my own list, personal list of 11 additional reasons why I avoid marriage. And interestingly, my reasons are largely independent of the 8 reasons identified by Dr. Smith. This is an article he cited earlier. Some of these reasons are deeply personal to me, but in the hopes that they might resonate with men who are conflicted on the subject of their own marital futures, I offer them up as an additional perspective as to why the single life is preferable. I can't take the single life seriously anymore as a phrase, but that's kind of an in-joke that nobody will understand.
At this point, I guess it's better just to add a trademark symbol to it, since everybody has to use it as though it's a lovely thing. And I've been listening to a lot of heavily male podcasts and things like that, or almost exclusively male, and they really like to perpetuate that this is the right way to go. Yet in their own podcasts, occasionally they allude to the fact that, well, having to find random partners, or having to, the dating life is so horrible and terrible and it's hard to find people. So the whole idea that the single life is somehow preferable, or instead of just being an alternative way to live, or just another way to live, not even an alternative, is just becoming ridiculous at this point.
And I guess that leads us right into our first reason. Your wife won't be able to manipulate you by withholding sex. I think this is ridiculous, but I will read it first and then we can cover it. While some people, okay, women mostly, treat marriage vows as loose, conditional, suggested guidelines, when I make a vow, I'm going to keep it. If it is within the capability of my mind or body, then I am both loyal and stupid enough to believe that a promise is a promise, and that integrity includes keeping one's promises, especially in the face of adversity. So if I promise fidelity to one woman, by God, the universe, and everything, I'm going to keep that promise. I've always had a large sex drive. I was hitting on my babysitters when I was 4 years old, for goodness sakes, which I don't think counts, but anyway. Even now in my mid-50s, the fires of passion still burn hot in me. The
Or
combi-
gonorrhea.
The combination of these two factors mean that I would be extremely vulnerable to a wife who wanted to manipulate me by denying sex. I'd have no recourse in law or morality. A man who coerces a woman into sex is viewed as a rapist, but a woman who coerces a man by withholding sex is a feminist hero. You go, girl, out of my house now, and no, I'm not going to marry you, bitch. Okay,
So
so
the first problem I have with the first sentence makes it sound like men somehow treat vows as sacred and they take them seriously, when I just got done reading a study that said that, to no surprise, when they asked, they gave basically what they called 4 attitudes towards sexual exclusivity, and it didn't matter what kind of relationship situation they're in, whether they were single, living together, whether or married, or in a serious relationship. They all thought the idea, men were more likely to think that the idea of having multiple sex partners was much better than being exclusive.
right, and I mean that's even an attitude that you just see around, and I realize that's an anecdotal thing, but to say that it's not true is ridiculous. And it's not that women don't ever cheat or don't ever think multiple sex partners is a good thing, but to sit here and posture that just because you could be a loyal man that holds his vows, that does not make it true of all men in general. The other thing that I said to you earlier when you first showed me this was, okay, so the whole your wife won't be able to manipulate you by withholding sex. Well, first of all, why would you marry somebody that treats sex as a weapon and a form of punishment? That just doesn't sound like a healthy relationship in general to me.
Right. The other thing I have a problem with this is that the people are all they always make it sound like men are somehow incapable of deducing people's behaviors and attitudes before they make the commitment. They can say people can say whatever they want about, oh well, she just totally changed on me when she got married, but chances are people aren't really that they're not that meticulous to change their tune altogether. They give you enough hints in the relationship to let you know if they're going to be manipulative. And like you said, in a relationship, and I've even seen movies that play on this joke where when they're dating, they can manipulate the man by withholding sex. So
Right.
what how is marriage somehow the only place where this happens?
I just love the way it's worded almost as a victim complex, too. I would be extremely vulnerable to a wife who wanted to manipulate me by denying sex. It's like I thought you were here to tell us how strong and independent you are.
Right, and especially if given the tone of the rest of the article or later on, he makes it sound like, oh well, I've gone above everything, and I've taken the red pill, and therefore I have superseded the need for all this. Which that's the main frustration I have with a lot of these idiots, where they love to talk about I've superseded biology, and then yet, like I said earlier, they're the first people to go and talk about, oh well, we're naturally supposed to be promiscuous. We're not supposed to be monogamous. That's just a societal construct.
Right, so which is it? Are we able to overcome our biology or are we not? The second point, I mean, to me, it's absolutely laughable. I know that I'm going to get shit for shaming men or something stupid like that, but number two, you won't have to lose your vintage porn collection. Now, to me, I'm not even going to read the excerpt yet. I just want to say that how ridiculous is it if you are so attached to women that you're never going to meet, never going to touch, that you would have it create relationship issues? I mean, if you're that attached to it, why don't you just find a woman that has the same feelings about porn as you do? I mean, they
Or
are
find
out
a
there.
porn star.
So let's see. My first college girlfriend got me a subscription to Playboy magazine for my birthday in 1978, which just goes to show that some women are okay with that. And although we broke up my senior year, I collected issues of the magazine until the spring of 1992, when my cohabitating girlfriend at the time discovered them and had an extreme screaming meltdown. She kept screaming for hours as I hauled them out to a dumpster. Then, she withheld sex for 6 months as a punishment for my transgression. I loved her dearly, but her jealousy never waned, and eventually I had to break with her, as I was unwilling to live my life in a constant state of sexual starvation. Who would put up with this for 6 months?
Right. And now let's remember this is 11 more reasons why a straight man should avoid marriage. His anecdote is
Is about a
about a
girlfriend.
girlfriend. So, once again, if this is really the case, shouldn't this really be about avoiding relationships if that's really the problem?
And I
And,
guess I
and
don't understand because he opened with my college girlfriend got me a subscription. So why don't you just find a woman like that and marry her? I mean, I'm if you don't think marriage is for you, fine, but this is just insane.
right, and I mean, call me crazy, but I would also be just as put off by the fact that there are a stack of magazines that you can't even open anymore.
Okay, number 3. These reasons always just seem extremely shallow. I mean, to me, number 3 is you can drive any car that suits your fancy. Now, to me, if I see a woman that requests that you drive a certain car or make a certain amount of money per year or something like that, I think personally that she's shallow. So obviously, my stance on this is worrying about what car you drive over an interpersonal relationship to me is shallow. Until I became comfortable with the notion of men going their own way, MGTOW, I often chose my car with an eye toward the sort of woman it might attract. This left me with several expensive, high maintenance models that looked pretty but didn't suit me. I didn't like the cars either. Okay, this is going a bit of a different way than I might have judged from the title, but why would you do something just because you think that's what women want?
I've only purchased two cars in my entire life, and I based my purchase of those cars on being able to get to work and being able to get to work.
Yeah, I've had 3 cars and I kept them until they died. I now drive the perfect car for me, a 2004 Prius, why am I not surprised, with moderate hail damage. My Prius is now old enough and ugly enough that it is a total chick repellent. The hail damage increases the gas mileage to the point where I can drive from Dallas to Chicago on 1 or 2 tanks of gas. Perfect for the day. I become a MGTOW ghost, and it is whisper quiet at low speeds. So quiet that later models had to add faux engine noises for safety reasons. Of course, if you get married, your wife will hold sex until you buy her a gas guzzling, planet killing SUV that she will feel slightly safer when she totals it. She'll hate your car, whatever it is you drive. That's interesting because most of the times where I've seen somebody getting a ridiculously oversized SUV, it was the type of men that were insecure about the size of their penis.
Right. And the other kind of funny thing I see here is there are kind of subtle implications or jokes I would make about this guy being a hipster the minute he throws the fact that he owns a Prius in there. And given kind of the later commentaries, he suggests he actually might be one. I know that's an ad hom and everything, but as for this guy becoming a MGTOW ghost, I would imagine that he probably already is one. If he's had 14 years of Playboy magazines that he's had in his closet or wherever he had it, I'm sure he's got covered himself with white. So he's pretty much done in that case. As for the whole SUV thing, what makes you think that every I don't think this guy's ever really said that he's married. So how does he know that having a wife or even a girlfriend means that one, they will want an SUV, and two, they will want you to buy it for them.
And what women is he talking to? I've never heard this. I mean, granted, this is not a complete defense of the group known as women, but who are you talking about?
Well, he's what he's trying to do is he's playing on a stereotype. So the stereotype of the typical soccer mom
Yeah.
who wants to transfer the kids to the game and the school and have all the packed lunches with the Capri Suns or the Kool-Aid jammers, whatever we had back in the day, with the ring pops and the Lunchables, and get little Timmy where he needs to go, and that way they'll drive, and they can have an SUV where they can go and do that, and they can, like he says, they can feel safer. But not everybody is like that, especially given just the proliferation of hipsters among other types of quote movements. It sounds less and less like people even one want to live in the suburbs anyway. I mean, this guy implies that he's lived in some urban areas for a while, and I, from all the people I know that live in these urban areas, they would reject the idea of owning an SUV, whether they're a man or a woman, simply by the fact that that makes them look less hipstery and it makes them look more like they want a white picket fence and everything like that. So those toolboxes are never going to be put themselves in a position to get something that can be that kind of gas guzzling, planet killing SUV that makes them safer.
Okay, we will move along to our next number, and that is number 4. You won't have to compromise your religious beliefs or lack thereof. Although my mixed up family has deep Catholic slash Lutheran roots, I've been an atheist since early childhood. I hear no voices in my head, divine or otherwise. Technically, I think I'm actually a non coherentist agnostic, which I have no idea what that even means. There's just too many terms for these things. In that God talk is largely nonsensical to me, but when you say agnostic, many believers, particularly here in the Bible Belt where I live, take that as an invitation to regale you with whatever voodoo is talking in their heads that day. My inaccurate claim to atheism is safer in the sense that it allows me to be written off as a lost cause without having to engage in any gobbledygook.
Yeah. So before we go into the next paragraph, I mean, this guy's already demonstrated it previously, but this is pure victim blaming, and this is one of the just totally irrelevant to this topic, but it's one of the most annoying things I ever hear. The whole I'm the atheist victim and oh I'm living in the Bible Belt where everybody says this and says that. Assuming that he actually lives in Dallas, I have found far fewer people come and treat me or act as though I'm actually holding any religion, and they act more like I'm atheist. If I'm not mistaken, there was one moron that made a post on a billboard there saying it was for a black atheist group because he was like, oh well, nobody, I don't have any more friends or in my family anymore. Nobody wants to talk to me. Yeah, because you're an obnoxious jerk. But anyway, he was like, oh well, I'm just trying to get other people around so we can have a conversation. But this guy spends too much time, and by too much I mean greater than zero. He spends too much time talking about the specifics of his beliefs, and everybody I know who has done that, including one that you and I personally know of, they all are desperately crying for attention. They have no other. They have nothing of interest to bring to the table. They have no personality trait that would make them worth having as a friend.
he
They just have this one trait that they think will make them look insightful and profound. When one, this guy can't even spell check his own article, but two, he's not even coherent with his own argument, his own thesis
I
here.
was gonna say his own argument basically destroys itself because right in the beginning he says his family is a mixed up of Catholic and Lutheran roots. Meanwhile, he's atheist. Well, guess what, buddy? You just said your family is made up of various different religions and anti-religion. So clearly, it's possible to have your own religious beliefs and be in a relationship or have interpersonal relationships with people of differing beliefs.
And when you say, like, when he makes these statements, he never qualifies them. So he says, well, many believers, especially here, think that then they can tell you about what goes on in their heads that day. I don't know of any person I know that's a Christian or Muslim or any other kind of religion, they have any kind of other religious faith, going and telling somebody who's agnostic what they think about in their day. And you calling it voodoo is absolutely ridiculous, considering you have spouted out the same amount of nonsense in just this one post. But he's making it sound like, oh well, because you said you don't know, they can still treat you as though they do this. Like every agnostic person I've ever known just acts like they're an atheist anyway. So in fact, in a lot of cases, I've even written articles about this on my website years ago. They seem even more obnoxious because at least I can find atheists who are hardline about, well, I don't even want to work on religious holidays, and I need to find a way to take God out of every little saying and expression we have. Whereas these guys are like, oh well, these are the kind of people I would definitely find and say, well, the minute they say something that's atheistic, and then somebody's like, "Oh, well, you're an atheist." Well, I'm not. They trip over themselves trying to go and say, "Well, no, that's not what I am." I mean, even the guy that you and I know, he had this long Twitter exchange about the specifics of his belief when really he's not that interesting. He's just a construction worker or whatever he does, and this guy is just a hipster driving a Prius.
To finish it out, women, in my experience, are much more spiritual than men, and that their overwhelming anxieties drive them to seek comfort and support through faith. Another generalization. I don't fault them much for that, but I sure as hell don't want to marry it or compromise my professed faith to placate hers. The professed faith that he doesn't have? It's like, if it's not important to you, why are you making it such a huge issue? It doesn't really add up to me.
I
Um,
mean, this feels like the Jacqueline Glenn Reason Center. I don't. My life is in shambles now. When it has really more to do, I think, with their personality than anything
Right.
else.
It's
There
the
are
way
plenty of
they choose to express their lack of belief rather than their actual lack of belief.
right. Like I've had relatives, and I've even had friends, and there are a lot of people I know personally who one spouse was they had a religion, and the other spouse, if they claim that they did, they didn't do anything. They did whatever. They certainly weren't going to any churches or mosques or synagogues or anything like that, and they're still married. So I'm not really sure about what I'm not really sure what's getting compromised here.
Number 5. You won't have to watch slash hold slash carry slash rebuild her fucking purse. Dealing with a woman means being subjected to female redecoration syndrome, which I imagine is a completely made up syndrome by this website. Her constant, endless drive to change both her husband and her environment, and her oblivious dismissal of her man's reluctance to do stupid things on her behalf. Reasonable things one might be able to work out with a reasonable woman, if such could be found, maybe. But going shoe shopping with her when she already has a closet full of shoes, no thank you. Well, first, this is the assumption that all women are addicted to shopping. And second, whatever happened to just being a decent human being and doing favors for the person you're supposed to love? And granted, I'm not saying, oh, every man should go around and, trip over hand and foot to please a woman, but in a relationship, you're supposed to do things for each other for the benefit of each other, and it should ideally be done at an equal rate, but I don't see what the problem is here.
So I actually have an anecdote about this. I had a friend, one of the friends that much had the same type of issue with number four, where he was just way too on himself about his own beliefs. And if it weren't for the fact this guy said he was in his mid 50s, I would think this is the same guy that wrote this. But there was a girl that he dated about 10 or 11 years ago, and most of us, most of his circle of friends thought she was great, and he broke up with her. And this was the reason he was breaking up with her. Well, she wanted to go shopping or so. Oh, heaven or whatever you want to say forbid that somebody actually wants to spend time with you and actually talk to you. Sure, it can be annoying to go and do something that has really no value for you, and absolutely you should go and try to find a way to reciprocate it or make sure they reciprocate it. But this it's like what you were talking about before with hedonism. That's all this is. This is just selfish hedonism. Oh, I need to do whatever I need to do to be happy. But the idea of making somebody else emotionally satisfied is just far beyond my list of responsibilities, and I don't need to do anything at all to make them happy. They're basically just here so that they can exist and they can do whatever I need them to do. I'm vulnerable when I'm not having sex. So that's clearly what they're here for, to be sex machines. As for the whole, well, they want to change the husband and the environment. Yes, there are probably a larger amount of women that try to do that than not, but it would be disingenuous to suggest that in some way that there are not men that don't try to do the same thing, because obviously this man is trying to change whomever he's with, because he's trying to make them say, hey, you don't involve me in anything except for sex. I don't want to compromise who I am. I don't want to change who I am. I don't want to get things for. I don't want to do anything for you. I want to do everything for me, and you need to learn to accept that. You can be in whatever space I have, but I don't want to do anything beyond that. Next.
Yeah, this is absolutely insane. 6. You can undertake risky ventures without being undermined by your wife. 8 years ago, an artistic entertainment district that I love was falling on hard times just as my corporate career reached an impasse. So I dumped my house and job and started my own entertainment business in that district. No woman would have tolerated a man who was as married to my business as I was, and continue to be. Women love commitment until it becomes slightly inconvenient for them. I know this in part because my live in girlfriend enthusiastically supported my new business venture right up to the point where she bailed out 4 months in. Now I can gloat. The district is now thriving, and the NYSE listed corporation I left died in January, and my work has brought me a bit of respect. The girlfriend found a new man, picked up his meth habit, and was in prison when I last checked. Okay, tragic story for her, but I really don't see how this one story suddenly means since this woman decided to leave me, all women would leave me.
Right, and I don't even know where to really start with this one. This one kind of hits me personally because I've done this a couple of times and I have never been undermined at any point that I try to do it, for the record. But this guy, well, the whole time I look at this, I wonder what is he actually doing. So he said he had a career that was going nowhere, but somehow he must have been getting paid enough to start a business. And then he flat out says he was married to his business.
Right.
So he doesn't want, he's not interested in commitment, which I don't understand by all of these mouth beat breathing troglodytes, how they always have to talk about how they want to be able to do their own thing. They're married to whatever objective or whatever goal that
And
they
then they
have.
somehow expect someone to be there to support them when it doesn't sound like they're willing to create a work life balance.
Exactly. And in fact, that's where we get some of these other problems that I'm going to eventually cover at some point, maybe in scratching the mic or in my book or in some other medium. But that is exactly how we get to these stupid platitudes and homilies on websites like LinkedIn, where somebody says, well, you're just not working hard, and because you didn't work hard, that's why you're not successful, without ever knowing anything or any idea of what works that person they're saying that to put in to only fail in their business. And this guy is like, oh well, I did this and it was successful. I don't have any evidence of that, so we're just supposed to believe it, but I did it. But oh, nobody wanted to stick around with me even when I said that my business was more important than they were. Well, yeah, when you put that as a priority over a person, it's going to happen. Now, I'm not necessarily upset with the fact that somebody puts their blood, sweat, and tears and prioritizes that, especially if, well, primarily or exclusively if they're single, over a relationship. But you have to realize that that comes with consequences. And it sounds like these children, despite being in their mid 50s, never seem to understand that an action comes with consequences. I have to deal with this every day that I think about starting a business. And I through the 10 years of my career, I've had to think about it all the time. I could have moved somewhere else where it would have been easier to get venture capital, would have been easier to start a business, and even if it failed, I would have at least still had the money. But then there would have been some consequences to that, and this would have been one of it. I would have probably dedicated myself to my business, so I wouldn't have had time for relationship and commitments. At the time, I was understanding of that and willing to deal with it. This person sounds like they don't ever understand anything, and they've been too busy being handed everything to realize that there are consequences.
I can agree with that. 7. Your vacation time is your own. I dislike vacationing intensely. Maybe I've got a touch of obsessive compulsive tendencies or some such, but I'm happiest when I'm working steadily and routinely. Vacationing with a wife would be agony for me, even if we could agree where to go. No chance of that. And letting a wife vacation without you is marital suicide. This, once again, of course, boiling down to the I want to do everything I want to do and you should support me, but I don't want to do anything you want to do because somehow it'll be agony for me.
And just to add to that, the fact that this person is always talking about, when it comes to himself, I'm always wanting to work, or I need to do this, or I need to do I'm married to business, I'm married to work, and working steadily, and I don't like the idea of vacationing. It goes once again back to what I'm saying. These idiots that always go around preaching about the myth of hard work and merit, going around saying, well, I never take vacation. They're the workaholic types that say, I haven't taken a vacation in 10 years, and I'm doing okay. These people are emotionally fragile, and it's only a matter of time before they come down crashing and burning. There's no reason why you should never take some time off. And the idea that you're happiest when you're working steadily and routinely is asinine, because you need to have a break to refresh so that you can be more productive at your work.
Right. How
Now,
many how many studies are there about work fatigue and burnout syndrome?
exactly. And his whole thing about I have obsessive compulsive tendencies. Yeah, you just might have that. Like, even I know other people who are entrepreneurs. I have a relative who owns his own business, and when he goes on vacation, he is on vacation. You can't call. And he usually goes out of the country, and I think he does this on purpose so that he does not have to worry about people calling him and trying to bring him into work. If he worked for a company, they would definitely try to do that. I've known lots of people I worked for, bosses and the like, where they are talking about. I know a guy that worked on his honeymoon. Now he didn't go and work in the way that, the minute he woke up, he opened up his computer, but he was saying, oh, well, I was checking email and things like that. No, when I went on my honeymoon, I never looked at email. The closest thing to work that ever came near me was one time I was waiting on the bus and I saw a truck with the company logo for where I worked. That was as far as I went. Now, we're on that subject. Now, because it was a honeymoon and therefore a vacation with my wife, I don't know what to tell you if it's going to be agony for you. A lot of times people like to take pleasures in the simple things in life. And if all you're thinking of is being pessimistic, then you don't have a lot going for you. So, one, the whole idea that, oh, well, a wife never agrees, once again goes back to a stereotype or a childish idea. I just looked at, the Maddox has his I'm better than your kids, where he reviews the kid's artwork. Well, there
Yeah.
was a kid that drew something where they basically were showing how they make decisions on where to go on trips. And they said, well, everybody argues until the one who has the money, aka my dad, decides. And so they would draw where it was like, okay, they're arguing. And then the last part is who has the money. And then the next slide after that is just everybody's just quiet and they stop arguing. So, one, that would in fact indicate that the man makes the decision because he has the money. And this guy loves talking about his money, so I don't understand where that would be a problem. One, because he can go wherever he wants, but two, the idea that, well, taking a vacation by yourself is marital suicide. Since when? I mean, you can find it on TV where it's like, oh, well, so and so's going away for the weekend or for the week or something, and she's going to go out with her girlfriends, or we're going to hang out with the guys, and that's perfectly normal and acceptable. And in fact, they enjoy it because it means they get time away from each other and they get time to enjoy each other when they come back. So I don't know what this guy's talking about.
I'd also like to point out that OCD is a disorder, and hence the D, which stands for disorder, but in this case, it may also double for dick. But
Yeah,
if you
I
actually
was
think
about to
you
say
have
the
OCD, you'd think that would be something you'd try to find some help with.
yeah, he doesn't have OCD. He is OCD, overcompensating dick.
You won't be humiliated in public by someone you loved and trusted. When withholding sex fails to move you, or maybe she just nuts out one day, but women cannot seem to resist the urge to humiliate their husbands in public, rat on their sex lives, or whatever. Such behavior is a deep betrayal of the trust one should invest in one's significant other, but I've never seen any woman ever be able to maintain the slightest degree of discretion about her husband's quirks, foibles, or personal secrets. Okay, how often do you go to your workplace or to any place where there is a large gathering of men and you hear men talking about their sex lives with no discretion whatsoever?
And or to that point, the old stereotype of, oh, my wife is just incorrigible and I don't want. So, okay, is it better that they do it in public, or is it better that they do it behind your back, like the stereotype of men? And the other problem with that is that you won't be humiliated in public by someone you loved and trusted. Have
Which
you ever
is
been disciplined by a parent?
right, which probably not, considering he seems to believe that that doesn't happen outside of marriages. And I mean, what is, once again, why is this only a marriage thing? I mean, technically, a girlfriend could do this.
Right. And the whole thing where he's like, well, he just she just nuts out one day. This is the same guy that just said that he has obsessive compulsive tendencies. He buries himself in his work. He's obsessed with work. He doesn't like to take time off. He thinks everybody should kowtow and cater to his needs.
But
He's
she's
the
the
one
nut.
yeah, he's the one talking about her nutting out, but he's the one that is just like one step away from BSOD.
Number 9. You won't have to serve as your wife's proxy thug. Oh boy. Women love using and testing their men by having them perform acts of violence at their behest. This gives women protection and deniability in the ensuing physical and legal melees. We see echoes of this whenever some feminist idiot wanders in here and demands we do something, anything, to stop rape or online harassment or whatever other bug just crawled up her thigh. This damsel in distress trope is nothing more than the bullshit manipulation of men. It criminalizes men and robs women of their agency. First of all, he didn't really qualify what scenario he's really talking about here, and then he just throws in something about a feminist idiot that they don't even know just coming onto an online forum and making complaints.
Right. Like this doesn't make any sense. So the whole idea that, oh well, if a man is I guess that's one example where a man is assaulting the woman and she needs him to come to her rescue, which my goodness, if you don't want to do that, that's certainly actually slightly or slight digression there. But read recently, I don't remember where, that they said that the the proliferation of social media now has made us as a society more involved in the community versus what happened from the mid 20th century on. And I have to call shenanigans on that because I don't see any involvement in community at all unless community means going on Twitter and changing your avatar or other some such nonsense. But the fact that this guy is talking about, oh, well, I don't want to get involved when somebody's harassing you just because I have some sort of connection to you. I just let you get robbed yourself or figure out how to beat them up. That only furthers that serves as a counterexample to whoever made that claim about social media bringing community back into society. Now, the other problem here is that from what I think it was a week or two ago, the only time I've found somebody saying demanding that we do something or anything to stop rape was ironically in a university system that was telling us that, well, we should get involved in everything, but we shouldn't get involved if it's dangerous. And in fact, the time that the quiz question they gave me was asking whether or not the woman should be getting involved with it. In fact, the man actually did get involved, but they said the same thing. Well, they shouldn't get involved unless they are sure that it won't be dangerous or won't be threatening to them. So I don't know what this guy's
And this
talking
this
about.
also makes it sound like the woman always is the instigator in these situations. Like she's just going out randomly starting fights with people and then throwing her husband on them. What if there's an actual legitimate situation, like you said, a robbery or something where the person you love needs help or protection? You're just gonna stand there? I mean, this is just pure cowardice. I don't care if somebody thinks that's an insult or shaming. I mean, where is your honor?
And
That's just the lowest of the low.
I'm sure he'll find some sort of argument. Well, as a man, I don't really need to do that, and I'm comfortable with who I am, and I bet if
No, no, no,
something
no.
happened.
This is ridiculous, though. You don't need the. That's not even my point. So I'm sure that'd be his counter, but that's not even my point. My point is, if you care about somebody, why wouldn't you do whatever it takes to defend them? I mean,
Right.
even a brother or a sister. I mean, or my friends. If somebody's in trouble that I care about, and I don't want to see something bad happen to them, I'm gonna do whatever it is I can do, whether I can win or not, to help them make sure they don't get hurt.
Right. Or I mean, even if it's another man, but I mean, I bet if something happened to this guy's money, oh, he all of this would go out of the window. And money is inanimate.
Right.
But if I'm sure because it's his money, he would do something about it. So I don't know what this guy's going on about. Like I said, it's just selfishness. Oh, it's all about me and what I need, and I the fact that I would be arsed or deign to have to do anything to help somebody else is completely ridiculous.
I'm above that, and I'm also above being a wimp.
Right, but I guess I guess given the fact that he owns a Prius, I guess we shouldn't be surprised. But I guess ad hominems aside, we'll look to the next two topics or points here.
10. You won't suffer the marriage tax penalty or subsidize her shoe collection. This guy is just obsessed with women and their shoe collections, which, by the way, not every woman has, but I guess whatever. Marriage is an economic disaster for men, not only in divorce, alimony, and child support, but also in a happy marriage. Oh boy. Women rarely deign to marry impoverished men or even men who earn less than they do. This means that those lucky married men suffer double extra taxation. Not only will your wife burn through your money, but the federal tax structure in the US anyway is generally higher for the married than for two single people. Once again, with the oh, all women ever do is spend your money because no woman on earth earns her own way. And
I,
to go for the oh, they don't marry impoverished or men who earn less than they do. Well, I won't reveal too much, but I have experience that says otherwise.
so not only that, but I my parents, so my dad was he came from poverty, and my mom married him. Sure, there was a possibility there was a probability rather of success, and in fact it did happen. But at the time that they met, he was he was absolutely in poverty. I mean, the only reason he was even getting an education at the time was because he had a scholarship. Being able to afford a college education, even back then, for somebody in that position, would have been extremely difficult. So I the site he sources is Daily Mail, and
Oh boy.
I'm not even gonna look at it because I doubt I bet it's just as well sourced as this article and every everyday feminism article. But then the other problem that I have is that he says that the federal tax structure is higher for married than for two single people. And sure, on an absolute scale, it is if you're married, filing jointly, or I think even separately. But single people, relative to their earnings, are taxed more. This was the whole reason, in my opinion anyway, that the government was resistant to gay marriage because a lot of people in the LGB community were, or enough, a sufficient amount, were well, they had a lot of disposable income, and them living together wasn't an issue, but it meant that when it came tax time, they would have to file as single. So a household got more tax revenue because you had two single people there. Whereas when you're married, it's actually a smaller tax rate because when it's single, it's whatever the single rate is times two.
Right.
But if you were to take whatever the married tax rate is and divide by two, it's less than the single rate. So that's wrong, and that's one of the reasons that people get married anyway, because the tax structure is more benefit. It makes it more beneficial to get married than to simply stay single. So once again, Sky doesn't know what he's talking about for the U.S. and he and this goes again back to money. Now there was somebody that once that I was talking to, trying to date, that talked about shoes all the time. That was pretty much all that she talked about. And I think I talked to her for a grand total of 3 months.
Right.
It's not that hard to say, you know what, I'm not interested in this, and I'm out. And I had enough self respect at that point in my life to say, I'm not going to keep doing this, especially if you're going to try to
Yeah,
manipulate me.
now I may be projecting my own reasoning onto this, but he always seems to be not only focused with money, but it's always these really shallow women that he's talking about. And I feel like he has this probably has this stereotypical idea of what a quote unquote hot woman is. And it just so happens to be a woman that is based all off of appearance and, no real depth to her personality. So you have a choice in who you pursue.
Right. It's you shouldn't be surprised if that's what you go after and you get vapidity. It happens on both sides.
And that leads us to our final point, which I'm sure is going to be a gem. 11. You won't have to suffer her physical assaults on you. The current feminist culture supports the right of women to physically assault men at any time for any reason. There may be good explanations for this from evolutionary psychology. Women hit men when men show some emotional weakness as a way to get them to man up in the face of the woman's need For a strong protector, men are ashamed and discouraged from reporting these assaults, and state and federal laws driven by the Duluth model of gender violence often result in the arrest of battered men rather than the women who attacked them. Now, I guess there are some issues when it comes to this violence against women thing, but at the same time, he just labels it as, oh, you won't have to suffer her physical assaults on you, as if every woman just decides to straight up slap a guy for no reason.
Right. When he even says that women hit men when men show emotional weakness. So this guy would either only know that because he read it, which means it's never happened to him, or it has personally happened to him, and therefore he must have shown some emotional weakness. But I thought that it was the women who were emotionally unstable or the women that had some emotional problems. And he just wanted to be as aloof and detached as possible and only wanted them when they opened their legs. Now he's talking about, oh well, you could be assaulted and you have no recourse, which is mostly true. However, it is wrong to say it's a general statement because if you can go on shows like Cops and watch the woman get arrested while holding a baby in her hands for assaulting a man, then you can't always run to your baby blanket of, oh, the Duluth model is showing everything that's wrong. If for no other reason than the Duluth model has garnered a lot of criticism anyway, and so there are plenty of people who obviously don't think it's working very well and they think it's very biased. So I don't know what this guy's talking about. And once again, he has no citation of sources. He doesn't qualify his statements, and he just hand waves it by saying, "Well, these are my personal experiences and anecdotes," and therefore he's not obligated to be logical and
But
reasonable.
somehow it should apply to everybody.
Exactly, as though every man that is attracted to women will only find vapid and shallow women. Even though, if we look at what this guy says, sure, it's an ad hom, and I don't care. But this guy sounds shallow and vapid because the only thing he talks about with regards to himself,
Is his wallet and work?
yeah, is yeah, wallet and his wallet and work, and what in himself. And when it comes to women, he thinks that women either use you, they manipulate you either to for protection or for sex, or they abuse you, or they care about shoes, or they expect you to buy them cars.
Which says he must have some terrible taste in women if those are the only ones he ever comes across.
Yep. And so now he gets into the section where he starts to play the whole self-deprecate. You know
Yeah, he's
the
basically he's throwing it out there so that any criticism that's thrown his way can easily be written off as one of the above. Uh, so, well, that about covers it for now, except for the shaming, which is apparently only valid when it's done to men. But if you say, oh, slut shaming or whatever, fat shaming, whatever other kind of shaming, it's never valid. So, yes, I'm a selfish, mean bastard. I'm so ugly, stupid, and nerdy that no woman would want me. We never said that, but it may be true. I'm missing out on so much love slash personal growth slash sex slash companionship. I'm probably gay or whatever. Yawn. Women are going to have to come to terms with the terrifying fact. I love it. Terrifying fact. Really fear mongering there. That men are growing beyond their ability to control. Yet somehow we're still whining about this in these 11 reasons. We will be exploited and chained no longer. There is nothing positive in slavery to a woman. Oh boy, and endless suffering, one by one. Oh boy, here it comes. Men are waking up and moving on to places where women cannot follow. Where? Houston?
oh yeah, well,
if,
may,
if you
may,
if you see a carefree man skipping off into the forest one day, well, that's not Bigfoot. It is me. Oh man, that is just.
so wait, Movie Bob wrote this?
I guess that falls under shaming.
Who cares? Man, this guy talks about how now he's stirring up the crowd. Now he's inciting action or non-action as it really is.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but not every relationship is slavery. Not every woman is going to exploit you. And if you want to stand aside and opt out and wake up all over the world or whatever you're talking about and be above being with a woman, that's fine. You don't have to be in a relationship. Nobody's forcing you. Nobody's strong arming you to settle down. And even if they were, you have the agency to ignore them. But
And here, well, here's my here's my main argument here, and I've made it before in your comment section on your MGTOW video.
sure.
It's 2016. I think we all know that if we look at any social justice Tumblr or Twitter pages. Regardless of how old you think humanity is, whether it's 6,000 years old or several million years old, you mean to tell me that through at least 95% of human existence, there was never a time when somebody decided, this isn't good and I should stop doing this? You mean to tell me now? Well, 2013 is when he wrote this. So you mean to tell me in 2013, where the human mind has had years to develop, to form opinions, to shape their mind, to form ideas and mature societies and grow and evolve as a species, now is the random point-wise time in human development where we now are waking up and deciding things? What really makes you think you're so special where somehow our forefathers and ancestors never thought about this, but you somehow have cracked the code?
And I really hate the hypocritical, oh, we're overcoming our biology, but yet when it comes to things like sex, for some reason they just can't. Either we as human beings have the ability to overcome our biology, or we can't. I mean, I don't understand why it's acceptable to portray it as such a selective process.
And then I have to love the closing statement where he says, if you see a carefree man skipping off into the forest one day, yeah, I thought that you were happier in your work and working steadily and routinely. So what are you doing in a forest doing leisure activities?
That's what I'd like to know.
And then here goes Ad Hom Central on the about page. First of all, the avatar is of a cat, so we can go ahead and make the involuntary.
It's actually not showing for me for some reason,
Well,
but
for me, it's a picture of a kitten, and so we can go ahead and make the involuntary celibacy or virginity comment right here because it seems like all of these single, lonely male idiots online just all they love cats. It's like the old lady cat stereotype somehow manifesting itself into men.
they're
But
taking it back.
right, but now we see what he says. Once he stumbled onto girl writes what videos
Oh
or
boy.
what writes what's videos. So yeah, August Lobenskilds, aka the Bibo, says, great, started eating red pills like they were Tic Tacs.
Tic
He
Tacs are
likes to
better.
he likes debating feminists, so he's unemployed, but knows this stage will pass soon enough. You see, how does a man in his mid 50s talk like he's a man in his teens?
Yeah, I don't really understand eating red pills. I wish
And
that terminology would go away. It's from a movie that, quite frankly, sucked anyway.
well, I will say the funny thing is that blue pill means something else, and so at least we know he isn't taking any blue pills because that means no. If he's not, that means nobody's having any sex with him. So we can at least take solace in that.
I'd also, I mean, this is pretty obvious to anybody that understands how relationships actually work, but he has not exhibited any qualities here that show him of someone of good character and of quality of character that is worth being in a relationship with. He seems to paint things completely one sided, wants everything his way with no leeway for anybody else, and then complains about women that don't care about him. I mean, if you don't want a relationship, okay, step aside because there are plenty of guys out there with a lot better qualities than you seem to have, and they will find somebody worth being with.
Right. I mean, this guy would based on even his own arguments, he wouldn't be an attractive candidate for a woman because he is not interested in protecting anybody but himself. So they have no confidence that he could ever protect them.
Now, granted, life isn't all about living to impress women. I'm not by any means saying that you should do this. But if you expect somebody to care about you and your needs, then you, by extension, have to care about them and their needs. It's just simple compromise and reciprocation. If you're not willing to do that, don't have a relationship, but don't bitch endlessly when other people do and don't want to listen to you. And that's
Right
basically my closing statement.
I mean, you're right. There has to be some reciprocity here. You wouldn't do that with your own male friends and say, "Oh, well, you need to help me, but I'm not going to do anything to help you. You're on your own when it comes to that." I mean, he even showed that he did help somebody else, so he must have some kind of compassion for somebody. But it seems like this guy has just as much vapidity as the people that he dates, and so you can't get mad that you are getting exactly what you are putting out.
Right. If you're shallow, expect shallow. And that's going to be about it for now. I think it went on a little bit longer than we intended, but that's all right. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next time.
Take care.
I'm the only one.